Good morning, everybody, and welcome to October's Schools. For those who don't know me, my name is Alice Coleman. Of just run through the list of attendees at today. We have Adrian Orr, Amanda Havers, Andrew Berry, Angela Ransby, Angelo Godu, Christina Lewis, Colin Shaw, Darren Woodward, Daniel Jones, Emma Fake, Emma White, Gemma Morgan, Jones, Jacqueline Dye, Julia Granger, Kate C. Maria Kemble, and Mike Quinton. Hang on. We also have Ashley Jacobs, Paul Firkin, Rowena Mackey, Councillor Rachel Hood, Ross Somerville, Ruth Coleman, Sonia Harben, Stephen Dewey, Sue Prickett, Susan S. Sorry, I can't recognise her name. Ahead, and Teresa. Welcome all to one. I know that Teresa has run through already. Just now run through the apologies that we've received for today's meeting. Susan Shields, sorry, I now have your name because I know that you're substituting for Robert Lenko, who's unable to attend today. Emma Fake is in attendance, Murphy, and that is the number of people who have sent their apologies for today's meeting. Ross, you've got your hand up. I'll bring
Alison, there's a bit of chat. I'm afraid we're struggling to hear you a bit. Could you come closer to the mic? Sorry,
okay.
I don't know if it's the mic. It's breaking up a bit and you're very quiet.
All right. Okay. Thank you. I'll raise my voice a bit as well. Thank you, Ros. Just all to let you know that due to moving on, Karen Lodge has now resigned from school. So on behalf of all of us, I'd like to note our thanks to Karen for her contribution to schools past. Okay, so that concludes the welcome and introductions for today. And I'll now move us on to the next item on the agenda, which is the minutes of our last meeting held on the 29th of June. If I can take them, please, for accuracy and matters arising as we go through. So we have page 1. People can please either indicate in the chat or shout out if there's anything on each page. Page 2. Gemma, did you want to give the update on page 2 action? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good morning, everybody. It's Gemma Morgan here, Head of Send Funding and Provider Services. I had an action to work with Daniel Jones and to talk to him more about the work that he was undertaking. So this was linked with the the work that the Send task group are doing. So Daniel came to the High Needs Working Group, the last one that we held last month, came and did a presentation to the group and has since shared that with the group as well, so they can then disseminate that to their various areas. So that's all done. Thank you, Alison.
Thanks for the update, Gemma. Thanks very much, and for the work that you've done with Daniel and the wider work that Daniel's been doing to contribute. So thank you both for that. Moving on, so now anything from page 3 on the minutes? Page 4. Page 5. Adrian, can I turn to you for the update on that one, please?
Certainly, Alison. Yes, colleagues, there was an action for some discussions outside of forum about our lobbying. I have met with not only SEON, the Secondary Head Teachers Association, and also the Primary Head Teachers Association, but we also had a quick discussion around Suffolk Education Partnership's role in all of this, and our intention is for all of those groups that represent school leaders to do a sort of single lobbying, very much along the lines of the lobbying that Councillor Hood has done directly to Suffolk MPs. So that work is in train. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Okay, moving on. Page 6. Page 7. Okay, thank you all. We'll record that as an accurate set of minutes for our last meeting then. Thank you very much. So now we move on to paper B, the approval of changes to the Central School Services Block budget. Adrian, I'll turn to you for an intro before handing over to Sonia.
Thanks, Alison. Yeah, very, very short introduction, and people will know I always like to make this point around the Central School Service block. It's really important to note that this is the funding that comes to the County Council to replace the former Education Support Grant. And I think in the past there's been some thought that this is a top slice on school or academy budgets. It really isn't. It's actually the money that replaced the Education Support Grant. However, this aspect of it is the historic element that you'll know from the paper the Department for Education have been progressively reducing and in fact removing the historic element. We continue to lobby for them to remove the historic element around SEND and high needs funding, but that's for another day. But I just wanted to make that point at the beginning, but I don't want to steal any of Sonia's thunder, who is the person behind the detail of this paper, so I'm going to hand over to Sonia there. Thank you.
I think it's fair to say Adrian's stolen all of my thunder. Good morning, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name's Sonia Harben. I'm the CIP Strategic Finance Lead. This paper here, for those of you who have been in the Schools Forum for a while, you'll recognise it in terms of the ask. Every year, as part of the DSG guidance, we actually have to ask Schools Forum to vote on continuing the historical element of the CSSB. Whilst in the first 2 years, we had to actually make the savings, so we had to cut these services because it wasn't a priority from a corporate perspective. Excuse me. However, for the last 2 years, and including for the 24-25 budget, we have agreed that it is now on the medium-term financial plan. So the reduction of 20% in historical elements will be in effect replaced by core funding. As part of an appreciation that these services couldn't really be reduced or closed without significant impact to schools and actually the wider communities as well. So it's just seen as an important priority for the council, not just CYP. In terms of, the amount of core funding that replaced CSSB in 24-25 is almost exactly equal to the amounts of money that we're funding education, learning and the virtual school. So in effect, the remaining CSSB will be funding the early help elements that have been agreed previously. And Julia Haig is here if you've got any specific questions about how that funding is used. And so the ask is really that you will vote to continue that. There's also a request to vote on the redundancies element, which is a very small element. They are ongoing redundancies that we would have to continue to fund and through the CSSB. So yes, over to any questions. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you, Sonia. I'll just go to their hands up. Susan, can I bring you in? Thank you.
Hello, yeah, Susan Shields here. It's my first time, so excuse any ignorance in my questions. I just wanted to understand, so previously in the budget, you talked about having the educational learning in the virtual schools, and understand the budget for that has moved over to the corporate budget. So I assume those services will still run, but under the corporate budget. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. So there's just no change. It's just the funding stream changes in our books in effect because we have less grant coming in, so we can't offset it, but instead we replace that in effect with core funding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome, Susan. Does anybody else have any points they'd like to raise about this paper or any other questions to Sonia before we go to the vote? I think a lot of you have been used to this paper over a number of years now, so you're sort of used to the pattern of what happens every October. We have a conversation about this reducing budget, and it's just a slightly different way that luckily some of the shortfall is being addressed now, so it's not so much pain, or not quite so much pain. Okay, thank you. Then Jacqueline, could you launch the first poll, please? So once again, to remind people who joined, it's for voting members only. So those of you who are eligible to vote from maintained schools or academies, could you please vote now? to agree the funding for the services described in Annex A delivered by the Early Help team of 2.148 million. So can you vote yes or no to that, please? Wait for all of the votes to come in. Thank you. 18, all 18 eligible people have voted in favour. So thank you very much. So can we move on to the second vote then, please, Jacqueline? So this one is to agree the funding of any residual long-term redundancy costs of 0.023 million. Could everybody who's eligible please vote for on this quick vote now. Thank you. Thank you very much. All 18 eligible people have now voted. Thank you. And everyone was in favour of that as well. So thank you very much. That concludes paper B. So moving on the agenda to paper C, which is about the early year rate rises. So I'll hand over to Christina Lewis to introduce this. Thank you. Or talk us through this rather.
Thank you, Alison. Good morning, everyone. Christina Lewis here, Head of Early Years and Childcare Services. You will recall at the last, those of you who were at the last forum meeting, that we were expecting information from the DfE about a temporary uplift in the funding rates to be implemented from September to April. We didn't have the detail at that time, but it was being put through as a grant so that we didn't have to seek approval from Schools Forum. It did come through a bit later, and we did apply the principles that were agreed at Schools Forum, which was that we would pass through all the uplift. So the paper details what the new rates are. As I've said, these are temporary rates. The rates will change again in April, and there is a new entitlement coming in April as well. So there will be an additional entitlement to talk to you about then and what the rate will be for that. But I just wanted to make sure that what we talked about last time, you can see what we did, you can see what the early years sector are now getting for the time being. I will bring a paper asking for approval because the grant situation was a one-off. We will be going back to core DSG funding. So I will be bringing a paper for approval for the rates to implement in April. I'd like to hope that we could do that in the November meeting, but that is unlikely. The DfE don't normally release that information at that time, so it's more likely to be January, but again with the intention of implementing from April. So if anyone, so this is really telling you what we did this time. Next time it will be asking what we would like to do next. So if anyone has any comments or questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Christina. And I think it's fair to say for new people who are on the call today that part of the build up to bringing the paper to Schools Forum is that you have a conversation with your provider group, your early years provider group.
That's right.
Thank you. Gordon, bring you in. Thank you.
Good morning, Christina. Good to see you again. Just for clarification, what is the logic behind the rate for 2-year-olds and the rate for 3 and 4-year-olds, with the rate for 2-year-olds being somewhat 54% higher than the rate for 3 and 4-year-olds? Is there any logic or?
No, we have no control over that. We can't move it between funding streams. So it is what the DfE have given us for 2-year-olds and what the DfE have given us for 3 and 4-year-olds. It is a bit higher for 2-year-olds because the ratios are smaller. You have to have more staffing to children for 2-year-olds than you do for 3 and 4-year-olds. But I agree with you, it is really quite unbalanced at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Gordon. Any other questions or thoughts on early years from anyone for Christina today? No. Okay, thank you very much for your time, Christina, and the work you're doing with the early years team. Thank you very much. Okay. So we're now on to the item D, which is the forward agenda. We have one meeting left in this calendar year, which is in November. Adrian or Sonia, do you want to talk through anything about the forward agenda?
Hi, I don't think there's anything else to put on there. I think the delegated budgets, obviously we know it'll be a similar style to what we've done in the past, but this will obviously only be for the maintained sector to vote on, which is de-delegating the element of an individual school's budget back for services that are provided through the council to ensure efficiencies of economy, scales of economy, that kind of thing. And then the schools block funding submission, that will just be a short paper that Mike will do, which just gives an overview really of where we're at. And we'll just give, Gemma will give us an update on where we're at with SEND. I'm sure you appreciate the difficulties we've got there at the moment, and that will then feed in obviously to our DSG spend finance update for this financial year, which as I'm sure you've already seen is pretty precarious situation for the council at the moment, but not unlike anywhere else nationally. So thank you.
Thanks. And the only thing I would add to that is Sonia, Michael and I will put together the forward plan for next year. Obviously, there's a number of repeating items because there are regular things that Forum needs to cover, and we'll get the dates out. Hopefully, we're going to try and have all of that put together for the November meeting.
And for those of you who are new and for whom the term de-delegation might be one you haven't come across before, do feel free to go back and look at last year's paper to give you an idea of what the process of looking at various different funding streams that we have to vote on to agree whether schools will agree to have their budgets de-delegate some funding back to the local authority to fund those different funding stream of those different services. So if you want to know a bit more about that terminology before the next month's papers come out, then hop back and have a look at the paper for last year, because that will give you a lot of background information that you might find helpful.
Thanks, Alison. Just to add to that, I know Sonia made the point, but to really make it, the de-delegation is for local authority maintained schools.
Yes.
That's not
Indeed,
the whole sector.
Yes.
It's just local authority maintained.
Thank you. That's important to clarify that, Adrian. I should have said that as well. Thank you. So we have come to the end of today's meeting. I think even for us, this is a record speed meeting. So thank you all very much for putting the time in your diaries today and coming along this morning. And I'll see you all again on the 30th of November. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Alison. Thanks all.
Thanks, Alison. Thanks, everybody.